The article I chose to read is called Maintaining Sanity in an Insane Classroom: How a Teacher of Students with Emotional Disturbances Can Keep from Becoming an Emotionally Disturbed Teacher. This is very pertinent to me because my interest is in teaching in an ED/BD classroom, and it talked about the tenure or the lack thereof for teachers in ED/BD classrooms. A lot of times they don't have a lot of experience or a lot of tools when they're in these classrooms because they don't last that long. So this article was a lot of tips and a lot of hints and a lot of tools for your toolbox so that you can be prepared to teach in these classrooms, because some of these students are our most needy students and they need teachers with experience and teachers who stay for a while. So he talks about Coach Cavan, as they call him throughout the article. He talks about how the hopelessness and helplessness of your students can often become your own hopelessness and helplessness. That a lot of times ED/BD teachers are isolated from the rest of students and the rest of teachers even, that they don't have a relationship with the school. And so they look outside of the school and become more involved in other classrooms, and then they want to teach in other classrooms instead of teaching in an ED/BD classroom, which is unfortunate, again, because we need teachers who are well-trained and have experience in these classrooms. Also, some of the tools that he suggested using were things like don't sweat the small stuff. So if you spend the whole day correcting small behaviors, like if somebody chomps their gum or if they tap their pencil, and you spend the whole day correcting those small things, then you're not going to have any time for education, and those are going to become big issues instead of little small issues that they really are. So he has a lot of great phrases in here, like don't sweat the small stuff. Don't beat a dead horse. So if a lesson plan goes awry, it's okay to let it go awry. So you should overplan and have a lot of tools in your tool belt, have enough information so that you can teach a bigger lesson or come back to it. Have alternatives for the other kids in case one kid becomes disruptive. Another kid can still be working on a computer program, a puzzle, a math game, another thing that they can be doing instead of being involved in whatever's happening in your classroom. Is really important. It's super important to be teaching these students social skills. A big thing that I have heard said and say myself often is, how can we expect social skills if we don't teach them? So he discusses teaching social skills and using cards like Boys Town. I have some of those here that I'll show you in a minute. Maintain proximity, which is true in any classroom. If you walk around, if you're close to the kids, if you're involved in the kid with what they're learning and helping them learn, then it's less likely to be an issue. De-escalate as quickly as you can. You can do this by maintaining composure, maintaining control, remaining calm. No matter what he says at the end of the day, you're still the teacher. If you can control yourself, and you've built relationships with your students, outside help undermines your authority and can be dangerous. So this is discussed when he's talking about if you get like administration help or the SRO to help with whatever situation. If you've already created really strong, healthy relationships in your classroom, you should not need to call those people in. And if you do call them in, it can question your authority and your ability to handle the classroom. Pain is temporary. You're going to get hit a lot. And you have to remember that this is temporary. It doesn't last forever. Use of the 10-second rule. I had never heard of this until this lesson. The 10-second rule is super important. It establishes a precedence for if a student is very volatile, and you can say, okay, we're using the 10-second rule, and that means the whole classroom has to be cleared out in 10 seconds, and those students have a designated place that they can go to with a designated adult. And so then you can defuse that possibly very volatile situation. Another thing I liked a lot was the coupling statements. They are statements which tell the student who is out of instructional control, what is he, she doing, and what they're doing wrong. So his example was like, Thomas, I see you standing on a table. You should be sitting at your desk. So he goes through it and just keep repeating that or changing it as the child's behavior changes and pointing out what they're doing wrong and what they need to be doing. This redirects them. Also, if you deflect statements, so you deflect like an insult and you kind of question it. So then you take them from being emotional to becoming reasonable. They have to think of the answer that they're going to give you. So after reading this article and thinking about how I want to be an EDBD teacher long term, I would like to find a classroom and stick with it and become effective in that classroom. And I found a lot of tools in this article that I will carry with me. And then I wanted to include some tools that I had heard and seen myself. So I found some Boys Cards instructions, and these are on laminated paper. So if you get a kid who's upset and wants to try and tear them up, it's going to be a little more difficult. This one is listening, and it just talks about looking at the person who is talking and remain quiet. Wait until the person is through talking before you begin to speak, and show that you heard the person by nodding your head, saying, okay, that's interesting, etc. So they have Boys Town skills for basically everything. Working with others, accepting criticism, following instructions, asking permission. Most of them begin with look at the person, because that's a really important skill that a lot of students need to work on in and outside the EDBD classroom. The next thing I created, okay, as I was saying, this is the poster I created. My first statement is, how can we expect social skills if we don't teach them, which I think is the most important. And then I have a picture of some of the zones we use. So we have the green zone, the blue zone, the yellow zone, and the red zone. These are described a lot for the students so that the students can understand them. So on this side, it tells you the different zones, blue, yellow, red, and green. And those zones are, like if you're in the blue zone, you might feel bored, tired, or sick. If you're in the green zone, you're happy, ready to learn, calm. If you're in the yellow zone, you're silly, excited, uncomfortable. If you're in the red zone, you might be mean, aggressive, or mad. Then it depends on the level of your students and who you're working with. You might have to use the pictures, which again say the same thing as the words up here, but are a little more defining for students. Then there's a really great thing up here that comes also from the zones of regulations, which I think is a great tool for EDBD teachers. And it talks about the size of the problem. How big of a problem is it? Is it really that big of an issue? Can you evaluate how big the problem is? So many of these skills are asking the students to think about how they're feeling, evaluate those feelings, and then how can we handle them? Down here we have, like if you're in the blue zone, you're feeling tired, what can you do? You can do some jumping jacks, you can get a drink. If you're in the green zone, well, you're ready to learn. So you can read, but there's fun things you can do. Play in the gym, bike, listen to music. If you're in the yellow zone, maybe you just need a break. Maybe you need to calm down, talk to an adult. If you're in the red zone, which is where a dangerous event might happen, where kids might become more physical, you might need to run, you might need to take a break, you might need to throw something, so maybe go to the gym, relax. It comes with a little booklet, which you can't see very well in here, and the booklet discusses like what happens if you're in the blue zone. When I'm in the blue zone, other kids might feel so-and-so around me, other kids might be thinking, other kids might say. This one is all for triggers. What are your triggers? What are things that get you from being in the green zone to getting in the red zone? Sometimes that's really important for students to be able to identify what gets them there. This is just a real quick picture of what you can do to calm down. So ask for a break. Sit down in a break area. Take 3 deep breaths. Count to 10 slowly. Are you calm? These are tools for the kids to use, so they have to be explicitly taught. And that's why there's a book that comes with it. So what is like your inner coach saying to you? Here's how we take deep breaths with the lazy 8. So it talks about breathing in and breathing out. These are not tools that many students who are in EDBD classrooms already have. These are tools that we have to teach them how to use and teach them how to identify what zone they're in, how they're feeling. And this is not something that you have to learn by yourself. Zones of Regulation is a huge book with tons and tons of tools in it. And workbooks, like these are just pages I took out of the workbook for the students to do. So I think this is a fantastic tool to add to your toolbox and goes along with teaching those social skills and also making sure you have enough information to help your students do their very best.